This is Major Stories. Good evening again. I am Joel Crosskill. High demand in the foreign exchange market has led to a decline in the Jamaican dollar. However, Minister Dr. Nigel Clark believes that this does not warrant a call for the use of public resources to fix the issue. According to him, using funds from the BOJ reserves will deplete resources and affect economic independence. Our lead story this evening is with my colleague Khadija Thomas.
The temporary shortage in foreign exchange does not mean a shortage for the Jamaican economy. That's according to the Bank of Jamaica, whose statement has been met with agreement by the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark. According to Dr. Clark, the BOJ is working on effectively rationing the demand and supply of the Jamaican dollar. However, one economist believes that greater focus must be placed on promoting exports as Jamaica does not earn sufficient foreign exchange.
The trade deficit is projected to run at about 4.5 to 5 billion this year, coming from 4.4 billion last year, because when we look at the numbers for the first 8 months, we saw that the deficit was running at almost 3.3 billion, with imports running at 4.3 billion and exports declining by 88 million to $1.1 billion.
Now, according to Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark, there is approximately $3.6 billion in gross reserves that could keep local currency in a narrow band for a few years, but going that route is a risk the government will not take. However, Hyman says the net international reserves can be used to intervene in the foreign exchange market.
What we're seeing is that the Bank of Jamaica's interventions are always late and always inadequate. Take, for example, during the current bout, the BOJ intervened at 139.58 with $30 million, while the market needed $70 million. Then they came back with $20 million, then they came back with $30 million, then they came back with $40 million, then they came back with another $30 million. It tells us that they are not assessing the situation accurately.
Hyman believes that the government must also focus on improving productivity levels, transforming the public sector, and fixing the monetary transmission mechanism in order to produce more exports.
In the interim, the BOJ can ensure or recommend or develop a rule which says that anybody who needs large transactions to be done must inform the BOJ within 30 days. The BOJ can also implement a circuit breaker system in the foreign exchange markets, just like we see in relation to the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Is Jamaica's sovereignty under threat in its attempt to comply with international standards as it relates to money laundering? The question was raised in the Senate as the opposition suggested they did not have enough time to fully investigate the amendments to the Proceeds of Crime Act. The details in this report. In a bid intended to ensure Jamaica's compliance with the Financial Action Task Force FATF, member of the opposition Senator Lambert Brown voiced his concerns, while also displaying bipartisan support for amendments to the Proceeds of Crime legislation that was tabled in the Senate.
Less than 24 hours notice to go through a 24-page set of amendments to a principal regulation to a principal act. It's difficult, and we're going in good faith in supporting the government, but I urge that the government, in setting its own agenda, take into account that we have a duty as a review chamber, not just to rubber stamp, but to look through these issues so we can comment and protect the citizens of our country.
The FATF is an intergovernmental body with the objective to set standards and promote effective implementation of legal, operational and regulatory measures for combating money laundering, terrorist financing and other related threats to the international financial system. Leader of Government Business, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, highlighted the importance of compliance.
To underscore the importance of enhancing our legislative framework to address again, the identified weaknesses in our anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism regime. We know that POCA sets the broad framework and that others align in parts and elements with it, and in this particular body of regulations will take us far down the path of ensuring that when we go to FATF next week, that we will be able to have a credible position on which to seek a re-rating.
Senator Johnson Smith noted that the legitimate turnover of Jamaica's growing ganja industry would also benefit from similar protection. Police officers that were housed at the facility on Hanover Street in St. Catherine fear that there may be an uptick in violence after they were forced to relocate because of deplorable work conditions. The officers say the facility, which is located at the border of the Klansman and One Order gangs, acts as a deterrent to criminals and increases business confidence in the area. Jamaica Maitland reports.
This very road, Hanover Street, acts as a border between St. Catherine's two most violent gangs. With Klansman to the right and One Order to the left, the police fear with the closure of the facility and no immediate plans, there may be an increase in violence. Strategically centered on what the security forces describe as a border, they fear that without a physical presence in the area, it may revive violence between the factions. They say the gangs pose a threat to the business community and argue that extortion and theft may increase for the holiday period. The officers who spoke off camera told us that since the police began operating from the facility, more businesses have set up shop in the area. CVM Live visited the facility of what were the offices of Sissoka, the Proactive Investigations Unit, the Scenes of Crime Unit, and the Anti-Gang Unit. According to the officers, from the outside, the facility appears fine, but on the inside, they're working in deplorable conditions. The ceiling has almost collapsed, the bathrooms and kitchens are a mess, and the AC unit damaged. Chairman of the Police Federation, Detective Sergeant Petrero, described the situation.
It's certainly in my experience in the JCF, it is the rarest I have seen conditions of work that our officers have to work in. In my view, it offends human dignity, and nobody should ever have to work under those conditions. We spent just over an hour with them, and I left the building depressed. And in comparison to our members who have to work there a maximum of 12 or more hours per day, the situation is untenable.
The officers revealed that some units have been relocated to the Spanish Town and the Central Village Police Station. However, they're questioning their ability to carry out their duties as their equipment are being housed in the empty building on Hanover Street. The officers say they're worried that they'll be forced to make a temporary situation permanent, while their Hanover Street location becomes the next old abandoned police building. Jamaica Maitland for CVM Live.
On Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced that the government will be spending approximately $1.3 billion on the National Mitigation, Sanitation, Drain Cleaning and Beautification Program, to be executed over the next several weeks leading into the Christmas season and beyond. As expected, citizens have been voicing their concerns. Aladdin Love reports.
In a few weeks, this gully, along with many others in filthy conditions across the island, are expected to be cleaned as part of the beautification and sanitation works to begin. That's word from Prime Minister Andrew Holness.
So far, some persons are in full support of the National Mitigation, Sanitation, Drain Cleaning and Beautification Program, as many of these areas are breeding sites for mosquitoes.
It's a good idea because it's a cleaning up process, you know. So I feel good about it, you know, because you have a lot of young people need some work to done. What's sitting down on the roadside not doing anything, what can get the work done. clean up the drain them and clean the street.
Prime Minister Holness did mention that special provision has been made for the identification and elimination of breeding sites on public or private property. That is the vector control component. He says this will be done by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, working closely with members of Parliament and their communities, and implemented by the National Works Agency, NWA.
While some citizens welcome the development, others criticize the allocation of $15 million to target critical drains in each constituency, as well as undertake vector control works.
But better than build up some building and take the youth them off the streets, people who want to work, and many people here that want to work, job, and give them the money where them have a waste, so that them to do.
At the same time, persons on social media are demanding accountability from the MPs, adding that some MPs can be very dishonest. However, Prime Minister Holness says the Integrity Commission has been invited to oversee the implementation of the program. This lady agrees.
Most times, as us Jamaicans know, the MPs don't normally use all the funds to do the work. So sometimes you see the work start and you don't see the finish.
However, she says these works should be done on a monthly basis.
In my parish, St. Mary, where I'm from, you don't have that much privilege. The gullies are jam-packed with dirt, trees and all sorts of debris. And the only time you see the place being clean is Christmas. So we need the drains to be clean on a regular basis to stop flooding.
Aladdin Love for CBM Live.